Yeah, 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 yeah. Look. Never switch on the homies in the day ones. They didn't wanna open doors, so we made some. Take a bow on these haters like I'm Trey Young. That direct deposit hitting like a bass drum. Incoming, coming, keep it coming.
Welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Elena. I have Maeve, Jerry here, and today we're joined by Shannon Hogan. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. We've been emailing for a month or two. It's so nice to meet you in person. And Jerry, good to see you. And Stan, I love you, my friend. So happy to see you.
I have to ask you this question. I was just thinking about it. Our rookie who will win the Rookie of the Year award,
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Schaefer, and I've been covering the game more than a half a century. I've never met a person so likable in every way,
Yeah.
every single way. I can't. So it's almost as if some Hollywood guy. This is the perfect guy. Well, you work with him all the time.
Yeah.
How do you explain him?
I honestly, Stan, you're 100% right. I can't explain it. I can't explain it other than he's, first of all, so dynamic to watch. The fact that he's already scored 18 goals and they have 23 more games, what he's able to do, the maturity that you see him on the ice, the way he handles himself on the ice is so impressive for an 18-year-old. But then the way he smiles in the room, the way he says hello to everybody. Yesterday we're going through customs and, I like to wait for the players to go. And he's like, Shen, come on, ladies first. And I'm like, you're such a class act. Like, I'm like, no, it's fine. He's like, no, we're all going to the same place. He has such a good head on his shoulders. His parents did such an amazing job, and his mom has passed away, but I swear she must be an angel looking down at him from above and just being so proud of him. His dad and his brother are huge influences in his life. They were in Montreal to watch him, and as you guys know, it's such a special building. Like, that is such a cool place to watch a game, to play a game for him the first time, and to have those 2 goals. I feel like I still have to pinch myself. Like, he is a media darling. He is a teammate that everybody wants to be around. He has this magnetic personality, and I just hope that continues for the next 2 decades and he continues to have this amazing career.
My 17-year-old granddaughter, who's playing defense with Culver Academy, she has one complaint about Mr. Schaefer. What do you think it is?
His hair?
Complaining that he won't marry her.
Oh, okay. He does have a girlfriend. And you know what? At 18 years old, he shouldn't be worried about that anyway. Just have fun, just play hockey. And actually, I think his girlfriend does play hockey in Canada, in college. So no, he's a guy. And Maeve, as you know, like, he's living with Matt Martin, who is just also a gem of a human. And every time he comes off the plane I'm like, that looks like a Matt Martin inspired outfit. He's like, oh yeah, I went into his closet. I got this. Sydney said I could borrow it. Like, they're so funny about it. But yeah, I think he's having a lot of fun. And I think that this Olympic break came at the perfect time for him because just the sheer number of games can be the pace exhausting, and the amount of minutes he's playing is always up there leading the team or one of those top guys. And so I think the mental break of it was just super valuable for him.
Were you surprised he didn't make the Olympic team?
No, I was not. I think that both Team USA and Team Canada had a lot of really, really amazing choices. There were a lot of guys that were bubble guys. I mean, you look at Bo Horvat, for example, who we were considering one of those bubble guys when, you're looking at it and you're looking at the Four Nations tournament and who's going to make the team and who's not, and how effective he was in, Milan, and really proving that he deserved to be on that team. I think Matthew Schaefer has a very long career ahead of him. And I think he will have his time to be on an Olympic team. And I also think he's the kind of guy that would never expect that. Like he would, I don't feel like he would have been like, oh, I can't believe they didn't pick me. I think he's got this attitude of like, I'm here playing in the NHL. It's amazing. I'm having so much fun. Like I will be cheering for Canada. I hope they win. That's kind of the vibe that I get from him.
Shannon, Islanders fans are some of the most passionate in hockey. How would you describe that fan culture?
Passionate, opinionated. Um, I think Islanders fans are unique. I'm trying to think of like the best way to describe them. It feels like a family. I think that that's how I would describe it. There are a lot of great NHL fan bases around the league. And sometimes people will come up to me, whether I'm on vacation or out and about, they'll be like, hey, I know what you do, but like I'm a Rangers fan, or I'm a Pens fan, or I'm a Leafs fan. And my response is always like, but you're a hockey fan. So that's great. Like as long as you're cheering for someone and watching the league and watching the sport, I think that's fantastic. Islanders fans get very emotionally involved in the team. They are very emotionally involved with each other. It is a real sense of community when you go to the game. You go to the game, and people who have had season tickets in the old building want to stay in the new building near the same people that they've had season tickets for. They're passing this down to their kids. They're making homemade signs. They're just super passionate and super connected. The amount of times people will come by our set and be like, oh, well, I know it's your birthday, so here are some cookies that I made. Or please come to the firehouse for this fundraiser. Like it has this very almost a small town feel of comfort in the best way. And it has become home for me and my family. And I think that commitment to the team, and they're very knowledgeable, they know a lot about the players and they support the players, I think separates it from some of those other big markets, because we are in the New York market, some of other big markets that can feel a bit more corporate.
I consider them the only team that I've been associated with, but this team now, I describe to people as lovable.
Yeah,
Team
they
can
are.
be lovable. This team is lovable.
And they like each other. And Stan, I mean, for years, if you even look at like the last decade, right? A lot of the guys was the same guys on the team for a long time. You've got, and it was Anders Lee and Brock Nelson and the fourth line and Matt Barzal. Like the fact that Matt Barzal is been in the league almost 10 years now is like wild to me. It really makes me feel super old. But there's something about this room that when you come in, I remember when JG Pajot and Stan, I think you were still covering when he came into to the Islanders. There's something immediately that if you're that right player, you just jump in like you're part of the family. And
Right.
I think that Anders Lee, as their captain, and the rest of the veterans have done a good job at trying to protect that environment and create that environment that they really do like to be together. And I think that helps and it shows on the ice.
Let's talk about you for a minute. Can you tell us where you were born and
I'm like,
raised
I
in
don't
your
know.
family?
What do you want to know?
Where were you born and raised?
That is a complicated question. I was born in upstate New York in Syracuse. And then when I was 6, we moved to Madison, Connecticut. So I would say like from elementary school, grew up in Connecticut, a coastal town, between Boston and New York. So, really kind of got into the sports. I think my first MLB game, I went to a Red Sox game with my family. Big household into college sports. My mom ran track at Ohio State. My dad went to Gonzaga. So we always had, college football, college basketball. That was really, really big in the house. And then right after the 96 Olympics, going into 6th grade, we moved to Atlanta. We were in Atlanta for 2 years. Then we were in Tulsa, Oklahoma for 2 years. And then my sophomore year of high school, we moved to Michigan, a suburb of Detroit, actually the Northville, Michigan, the next town over from where the U.S. development team plays. They literally play like less than a mile from where my parents still live now. And so graduated high school in Michigan, went to University of Virginia to swim. I was a swimmer, and then transferred to University of Missouri to finish my swimming career and get my broadcast journalism degree. And then things just kept moving after that. I was there. I went to California for 2 years. Then I got a job back in Detroit at Fox Sports Detroit. I was there for 4 years covering the Tigers, Red Wings, and Pistons. And my agent called and said, I was actually on vacation in Cape Cod at my grandma's. And my agent called and said, like, what do you think about the Islanders? And I said, listen, I'm looking for the next job to be something that I really am challenged by. And he goes, this is a job that involves a lot of work. You're going to have to write, you're going to do some, production, and you're going to get to work with the Maven. And I was like, oh, we're talking Islanders. And he was like, yes. And so I was like, just get me an interview. Just get me an interview. And that's kind of how I ended up on Long Island. I went in for my interview. I met Stan that first interview. And 12 years later, I'm still covering this team and still loving it.
One thing I have to say, okay, because I was there.
Yeah.
I discovered Shannon, but of course I didn't discover her. But I was I was meeting with my boss, and he was in the
Yeah.
next compartment, and it was glass. You could see, what was going on. And I like to say I discovered a blue dress. And
You did, yes.
as I walked by, I prayed very hard that this magnificent woman, which she's a magnificent mother and she's a magnificent wife, she's magnificent everything. I only pray that she gets the job. And she did.
There were a lot of tears. And I could not have asked, thank you for saying that, Stan, and I could not have asked for a better mentor than you, Stan. And you had mentored so many people along the way, but working with you was so much fun. I learned so much from you, but those years we worked together that were, the early years for me covering the Islanders was so much fun. You have an unbelievable ability to be like, oh, that goal. Well, I saw a goal like that in 1978. Like your recall is better than any human I've ever met in my life. Maybe a right on par with Howie Rose, which also the way that his brain works is great. But I think for me, it was rediscovering how much fun it can be to cover sports and work in TV. And in an environment like this in our world, I think that that's what people need. They need some fun and they need something that brings people together. And that's what sports do. And that's what hockey does.
Your enthusiasm is infectious. I just want to say, but I've always had the deepest respect for swimmers because, with other sports, like you don't have your senses deprived, like in swimming, it's just so much self-discipline to do those endless laps in the pool day in and day out. I just always had immense respect for swimmers because I can swim, but I'm better at sinking. And my mom always said it's because I'm dense.
Not your brain, just your body. That's what she's saying. It is amazing. And as Stan knows, Katie Ledecky, who is, the most decorated female swimmer, one of the most decorated women in the whole, all of Olympic sports. Her uncle, John Ledecky, is one of the owners of the team, and she watches every night. Like, she's a huge Islanders fan. And I have to tell you, like, I do not get starstruck that often. But getting to interview her, the two of us, it was so funny. Everybody was like, she was looking at you and you were looking at her. And it was like our two worlds were just combining live on television. And it was just so fun because I know what she's been through and how hard she has to train and everything. And I think she was excited because she knows how much fun the team is and how, she watches so much Islanders hockey. So it's cool when your two worlds can combine like that. And I've been very lucky that it's happened a couple times.
Shannon, actually, speaking of reporting, what's harder, live reporting under pressure or interviewing players after a tough loss?
I think live reporting is always a challenge. Interviewing players after a tough loss, I think it depends on who you're talking to. For me personally, I think live reporting is, you really want to make sure you're getting everything right, you're getting it timely, and you're also thinking about, like, if they're coming to me in a game, I'm also trying to watch the game and make sure I'm not stepping on our play-by-play guys' toes. Cause like, you could be in the middle of a report or something and all of a sudden there's a breakaway and all of a sudden, something is happening and you're like, do I stop talking mid-sentence? Like, Stan, you know what that's like. That's hard. I think that's a harder skill. As far as interviewing players after a game, when you're covering a team for more than a decade, like it's always easier on us when they win. And once you get to know the guys, you want them to win because you know that they're good people. But you also understand that there's a way to ask questions a certain way. And I think even if it comes out the wrong way, for the most part, those guys have a respect for you as a reporter that they're going to do their job as well. And I try not to take it personally. And there have been times where a coach or a player have kind of gone back at me. And it hurts because you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have said it like that. Or Cal Clutterbuck, there was a time where I asked him a question and I was like, we really didn't do interviews together for probably a month or two. And eventually got to the point where he scored a goal, he came over during intermission, he gave me a huge hug. And this is when he was, still playing, obviously. And I was like, are we good? He's like, we're good, And later on, we had talked about the fact that, like, I'm not going to be perfect every game either. Like, you guys can turn the puck over, but I can also misspeak. And I think as a reporter, it's building that kind of respect and understanding that you're going to do your best to be your best every night. But there are going to be times that you misspeak or you use the wrong word. And I think it's how you recover and handle that, whether you apologize or whether you try to explain yourself after to kind of develop that kind of trust.
Have you ever had a moment on air where everything went sideways?
Oh my gosh, yes. One of my favorites was Stan has been there. I've been on air when somebody's like come cutting across, I think it was a Rangers game. They just came running across behind us. And that was like a little scary. You're like, whoa, somebody's on the set. We've had but I think what happens is, and actually it's ironic, it was also when Stan, you were on the show, when Rick DiPietro was working with us, and all of a sudden the whole in the truck, all the cameras went down, the whole truck went down except for one camera. We had one camera. So the poor director's just trying to, go back just with the game camera, but we still had to fill the intermissions. And I was like, no problem. Like, we have no graphics, we have no music to get to break. So we go sprinting over. I'm like, come on, Rick. We go sprinting over and we're just going to literally stand in front of the game camera. And I'm like, are we on? They're like, you're on, go. And you're just going to talk for like 15 minutes, basically, until they need, or whatever, 3 minutes until they need to go to break. And then you're back on. And I love live TV. That stuff energizes me. For some people, they go like that's a panic. For me, I just think it's what makes it unique. You never know what can happen. You never know what's going to happen at your workday. Would I like everything to go according to plan? Yes. But that's the one time I can completely remember. Like, I was like, well, there was also the time that I one time tossed, like, opening a show, and I was like, and now let's go up to Howie Rose and Butch Goring. And it was Brendan Burke and Butch Goring. And I was like, I mean Brendan Burke, so there's going to be, like I said, mistakes. For me, I just try to remind myself that I'm going to make mistakes. And if I do, I just try to make fun of myself. Like, if I can't get it out, there have been times I'm like, I don't even know what I'm saying. Just go. You guys just take it. Like, who knows what's coming out, So you just have to have fun with it.
What separates a good broadcaster from a great one?
I think a lot of God-given talent, first of all. I think I'm going to use Brendan Burke as a great example, as a colleague of mine. He's been with us now, I think almost 10, this might be his 10th year. The first time I heard his voice on a call was actually his audition tape. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so good. And he has only continued to get better and better. I think about, the way that he's able to use words effortlessly or weave in stories effortlessly. Obviously, I'm not a good broadcaster, but he has a real passion and skill for that. He's a good person. The other thing, I think of like Kenny Albert, and I know, Stan, these people. He's a really nice person. Joe Micheletti, like, they're good people. They know the sport, they work hard, but they know they're not the only person that makes the broadcast happen. So I think a great broadcaster, I think a lot of it, like anything, is timing, luck, opportunity. But then when you have that opportunity, are you doing the best you can? Are you prepared? Are you delivering? And are you being a good person and bringing out the best in the people around you?
Who's your favorite person to interview who's not an Islander?
My favorite person to interview that's not an Islander. I like interviewing Anthony Beauvillier, and he was an Islander. So I would say my favorite people to interview are players that were Islanders that are no longer Islanders, just because they know me, so they're going to tell me stuff. I like Brock Nelson. Was always, he's not an Islander anymore. I will say the people that I've interviewed that I've thought to myself for years, I'm so impressed. Sidney Crosby is one of the people that comes to mind, and I think it's not like he's the most dynamic interviewer. He's not this huge personality, but it's the sheer amount of respect that he takes for everybody he does interviews with. He's the only real superstar that I've ever interviewed in the middle of an intermission as an opposing player. Like, we Islanders, gave up a couple goals. We needed a player, and I asked for Sydney, totally expecting their PR person Jen to be like, no, definitely not. And he had no problem. It wasn't like, oh, this is the visiting broadcaster. Oh, I don't know this person that well. He will sit at his stall every single day for the past, 20 years now, and talk to everyone. Be interviewed by an intern or a podcaster or a blogger or the New York Times or TNT or NBC. And I think because of that, I have developed an immense amount of respect for him playing at that level for so long, but also taking the time and energy to talk to people even when they're not his home broadcast.
That makes a captain truly effective behind the scenes.
Yeah, 100%. And Anders Lee is the same way. He's going to sit and talk to everybody. I just think that there's this level of mystique behind him, And I think, like, I interviewed Alex Ovechkin this year, after obviously he's had all these records, but I actually enjoyed interviewing him before he was on the chase because I think he was a little more himself. Like, he actually has a really great personality, and I liked interviewing him before it's been constant media. Like, you can imagine the pressure and just the everyday grind of that kind of media coverage. But I over the years, it's been fun because he'll make jokes. He's got a good personality too.
There was
I
a story told in
remember,
an earlier podcast with one of our guests who was a reporter and said he got there a little bit late and the person he wanted to interview was surrounded. So Anders Lee happened to be by himself. So he went over to interview Anders Lee and he asked Anders Lee if he could bring that guy over who was being bombarded with it. And so Anders Lee went and grabbed him, pulled him over. I want you to give this guy 7 minutes.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
that's good. That's
yeah.
good. That's a good. And you know what? Like I said, there are certain reporters around the league that have earned that respect because they are respectful. And I think the other question about what makes a good broadcaster or a good reporter is I think understanding the timing and understanding that these guys have only so much emotional and physical capacity on a game day. So I really try not to ask for interviews or to bother players if I don't need them. And I really try to spread out interviews. So I'm trying to be cognizant of the fact that if I've interviewed Bo Horvat, a couple games in a row, or we had him on the ice for warmups, I'm not going to ask for him for the first intermission. He's done us a favor by being on the broadcast. And I think being aware that they're giving you their time and energy and trying to manage that the best you can is also important.
I remember the first time that I worked with Shannon, and I always liked sight gags if they
Yeah.
work. And so I decided, why not disarm this lovely lady by giving her a potato knish?
I knew you were going there.
Potato knish and a little dinosaur.
It was a dinosaur.
Right. T-Rex meets Shannon Hogan.
I've never seen a Knish in my life. It was like the most non-New York. I was like, I can't believe Like that was embarrassing. I will say both my New York and Jewish culture has come a long way since being friends with you, Stan. The number of words and jokes and just like Jewish culture things that I have absorbed over the years has been a blessing in my life.
Well, the Hebrew word that describes my feeling when I worked with you and to this day, it's a mitzvah. It's been a mitzvah to work with Shannon, and because you are what you are. I also want to say that I got friendly with Shannon's parents and grandma. I remember hugging your grandma a couple of times. You're a wonderful lady. You could see, in this case, chip off the old block. You got great folks in that family. Let me tell you.
Well, Stan, that means a lot. And I actually was just talking about you recently. That makes me really emotional. My grandmother, this really amazing, special woman. And she had this sparkle, this show business type quality about her my whole life. And, she's been gone now for, I think, 4 or 5 years, I think. And it was hard losing her, but I remember her coming to that game and meeting you. And it was so joyful for me to watch you guys basically speak your own language because you both had grown up in this era of New York, of the showbiz, of the movies and the music and the culture that it was like a little banter back and forth. My mom and I have talked about this all the time. And it really brought me and my family so much joy because she lit up talking to you because it was like finding that another kindred spirit that understood because so much has changed in the last 70, 80 years, but there's something magical. My grandmother used to always say, once a New Yorker, you're always a New Yorker. And I'm like, but I'm not from New York. No, she goes, I'm a New Yorker. See, you're a New Yorker. Like she just had this special quality about her. And it was really special. I just saw some of those pictures the other day, and I know it made her happy to meet you and to come to the game. And I think, I think about how far women have come and my grandmother was really a pioneer. She was working out and exercising and doing that before that was even any women weren't doing that in the 50s and the 60s. And she was doing that. She went and got a job and put her kids through college with that money. My grandfather supported that for her. And my mom ended up, going on and getting competing in track in college. And I just think about like how much times have changed over the last, like I said, 70, 80, 90 years, and how grateful I am that she was one of those women early on that helped pave the way for each, generation of women after her to continue taking steps.
I told her, I whispered in her ear one day when she was on the set. I said, Grandma, you know something? Cole Porter wrote a song about you, and the song is, You're the top. You're my beach umbrella. You're the top. You're like sarsaparilla.
Um, That is a good line. I also like, once again, your recall is unbelievable. But that's the kind of lingo I'm talking about. She would know that. Like she would know that reference. And I think that's special. I think it is. Thank you, Stan. That just gave me such good memories thinking about that.
Well, I said if I continue on, we're going to have to do a dance right now.
Love a dance.
The Lindy Hop, if you really want to know.
Oh yes. Oh, she would have loved that. She was, I told you, she was a performer coming up on St. Patrick's Day. She would stand in front and she would, she had her little ditties that she would do and her poems and it a lot of fun. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Where are you guys based at? Are you in Toronto?
I'm in Toronto, Jerry's in Vancouver, and Stan is in Israel.
Okay, so you're literally coast to coast and we're coast to coast and around the world. Quite literally.
Elena and I have never met.
That's amazing. But you know what? You have a hockey podcast and you're like invested in the same thing. And that's what it comes back to, like, hockey brings people together. Different generations, different places around the world.
Well, I gotta say that when Elena and I do meet, she's gonna get one big hug.
That's awesome. That's
Because I
awesome.
feel like I've known her my whole life. So anyway, I want to ask you about the like the Islanders have such a storied history.
Yeah.
Brian Trache, Mike Bossy, Dennis Potvin, Billy Smith, Bob Bourne, all these players that I knew growing up. John Tonelli, Butch Goring. How much connection do you have with the alumni?
A lot. I'm so grateful. I see those guys. I mean, I'm beyond blessed, get to work with Butch on a regular basis, and we've been good friends since I've been here. I'm actually going to give you guys an inside scoop. So, funny story about Butchie. I'm in Columbus, as I mentioned, and we were at skate this morning, and Rick Bonus comes in, and he immediately goes, "Butchie, so glad you're here. So glad I'm not the oldest guy in the room." And the place just erupted. And then the two of them had this banter back and forth. It was so funny. But no, in all seriousness, Butch is so great. He has such fun insight. He's a great analyst because he understands, like, he's kind of had the touch point of like playing on those cup teams, coaching the franchise when maybe it wasn't at its best, being an analyst. Like, there's just so many different aspects of the game that he's kind of able to give a perspective on. Trache, I probably see at least once a month. He comes to games. He's around a lot. He is so warm and fun. He is so generous with his time to the fans. Everyone loves to see him. I had a great sit down with Billy Smith. We had dinner at at the arena before a game a while back, and he's a funny guy. Stan, I know you know Billy, but I think he kind of gets this reputation as like a curmudgeon-y kind of, kind of guy. And I think he's one of those guys that just would prefer to be like in a smaller group. Like, I think the idea of these big rooms and all the fanfare, that's just not him. He was a guy that was beyond talented, would go in, would make the saves, don't talk to him, don't look at him. He had a way that he did things, but that's not how he is in real life. Like, he's actually like a whole lot of fun to talk to. And so that's somebody else. I'm trying to think. Tonelli is around regularly. Speaking of Butchie, he was at Butchie's birthday party. Was his 70th birthday? We had a birthday party recently for Butchie. I'm not sure what year it was. But that was a lot of fun. Mark Parrish was just recently in the mix. So, like, the Islanders ownership has done an unbelievable job over the last 10 years. I will say it really re-engaging, reigniting their alumni, and not just those guys that are considered the legends or their numbers are hanging in the rafters, of really trying to connect with other generations of Islanders alumni and making it a point to bring them back and have them for alumni weekend and have events that the fans can, excuse me, I have the hiccups, see them. So I feel super fortunate that I got a chance to see a lot of the alumni on a regular basis.
Shannon, you've covered hockey from rink level to broadcast desk. What part of the game do fans never see that absolutely fascinates you?
I think fans, if you could be in a television truck, that is where the magic happens. It is the number one thing. If I have, like, if my husband comes to a game or my parents have been in a truck, they don't want to leave, because what producers, directors, tape ads, graphics people, engineers, what they can do, what it takes for them to put on a broadcast. And I say them because you're just seeing what we do, but the behind the scenes is it. When they say it takes a village, it's insane. Just the sheer number of cables that are going from what looks like a trailer to all these switchboards that they're going to pack up, they're going to move the truck somewhere else. The ability to look at all the screens, our director Joel Mandelbaum is fantastic. Look at all these screens and visualize the story in as quick of a manner that they do. They're some of the most talented people that I have ever known, and get the pleasure of working with. But I genuinely think the what happens in a truck to make a broadcast happen is the most interesting part of the broadcast. I also think at some point there's this term called the bird beater, which is basically when I have my microphone on and I have these like earpieces, they're called IFBs. I have them on and I'm talking to the producer, I'm talking to the truck so they can hear me in the truck, but we're not on air yet. And it sounds like, just sounds the same. We joke that they're like, we should do a whole segment on this because it's my random like thoughts that I'm talking to Clutter about to a fan is coming over. I'm talking to them. I'm accepting Christmas cookies from someone. I'm talking to our photographer or camera operator who was just covering, the World Series or something, or just, in Milan. Like it's all these other side conversations are happening, and then the camera comes on and you're like on, right? And I think for me, like that kind of behind the scenes is something that people don't see, but I think is interesting.
What was your I belong here moment in NHL broadcasting?
Honestly, I think I had to fake it till I made it a long time. I'm going to be honest. I remember one of my most memorable, I remember being when I went to Fox Sports Detroit, the Michigan State outdoor game, the Big Chill. I remember standing ice side in the middle of Michigan Stadium, and I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is my job. Like that was a pinch me moment. I feel like as it goes on, I have to constantly remind myself how much of a privilege this job is. Because, and you know what I think? It was really after the pandemic. I think the pandemic really put things in perspective for me and my family. I had become a mom right before that. And I think my understanding that when I couldn't do what I loved to do, it was actually physically painful. And I think that is kind of my like, okay, this is where I belong moment. There's a lot of other ways to cover other sports, but there's something very unique and special about being able to do the job that I do for the team that I do with the network, with the people that I work with, who I was just talking about, the behind the scenes. Like that's really what makes it the job. And I'm not sure if those circumstances were different, if I would feel the same way. I also feel like I've never fully made it. I still feel like I still have imposter syndrome. Like, to be honest, on a regular basis, I'm like, I can't believe that I'm doing this. I remember I did playoffs for TNT. You know what? That might have been one of the moments. I did playoffs for TNT the first year that they had the playoffs. And I remember being like, people were texting me and were like, oh my gosh, I just saw you on TV. And I was like, yeah, I've been on TV for 15 years, but like it felt big, And so it's a combination in your head as a woman, I think. And I can't speak because I'm not a man, but the combination of like, you're still covering a sport that is predominantly covered by men. I know my stuff, but you're always like, is somebody second guessing me? There's just always this like voice in the back of your head. But I think instead of thinking about it as like my I made it moment, I try to think of it as like how fortunate I am to do this and to continue doing this, because I understand there are a whole lot of people that would love to have my job.
What advice would you give to women trying to break into sports media today?
Be yourself. And be patient with finding your voice. I actually just got off the phone with a University of Missouri senior right before we had this conversation, and I tried to explain that idea of finding your voice. And Stan has had his voice now for as long as he can remember. But when I say find your voice, there's a fine line when you are learning a craft of any sort in which you're playing broadcaster, or you're almost like I want to be Katie Couric, and then all of a sudden one day in a show or an interview you hear your voice change and it becomes the professional version of yourself. And I think for anybody, one of the best ways to be successful is to be authentic to yourself. If the way you are off camera is the way you are on camera, I think that really comes through. I think people can really tell. And so I would say for women who are starting out is don't be afraid to move. move somewhere to get a job on camera. If you want to be on camera, or if you want to be working in sports, you might have to move. And just do the job. Just do the job, and the pieces will hopefully fall into place.
When you were going for your journalism degree, what school were you at?
I was at University of Missouri. I would just like to say it's the world's first journalism school. Um, it I cannot say enough great things about Mizzou and University of Missouri, and I would encourage any kid who knew, if you knew you wanted to go into broadcasting, I would encourage any kid to look there. And I know when you live in New York, people want to go to Syracuse. And when you're in the Midwest, people think of Northwestern. And, now there's the Cronkite Journalism School at Arizona State. There's a lot of great programs. But there is something special about the Mizzou method and the way that they do things and the way that they expose you to basically working in sports or working in a newsroom from the get-go. You have an opportunity to be covering football, covering high school football, working on a show from your freshman year. You do not have to wait until you're a junior or senior. And then your junior and senior year, you're basically working at an NBC station. You're not working at a student station. You are on the NBC station in Columbia, Missouri. You're working a night side or a dayside shift. So it's kind of more of a co-op. And then there's this great alumni network that are going to do everything they can to help you along the way. And it's been such a big part, I think, of setting me up in my career. And I cannot recommend that program enough. And my side plug is because, college is expensive and you guys are in Canada. It's a little different for you guys up there. But if you're an American kid and you're trying to go to school in the US and you have to pay for it yourself, like that's a lot. That can be a burden. And so I try to tell parents and kids, like, you can go to University of Missouri and pay out of state tuition for your first year. And if you live there for the summer and you get a job, you can establish in-state tuition and pay that for the next 3 years. And that makes a huge difference for families. So I try to tell them, like, look into getting in-state tuition and getting a job and staying over the summer. If that's, if you have to take out loans or that's something that you're still trying to explore. But yeah, cannot recommend it enough. It was fantastic.
What was the percentage of men to women in your senior class?
I would say almost 50-50, honestly, when I think back at it. That being said, I was not in the sports department. And I will say, when I think about who's still in the business, like I remember ahead of me, I don't know if you guys are familiar with a woman named Chris Budden. She works for ESPN now. She does a lot of tennis coverage, baseball coverage. She does the College World Series. She had graduated just that year ahead of me and really was like grinding it out. Like she was one of the women that there weren't that many. As far as women who got jobs in sports, she got a job in sports. I got a job in sports, but most of the other women were going into news. I do not know very many women that were in that time frame for me that then went and got jobs in sports. There weren't that many jobs, period, in sports. So to get one as a woman, you were like,
What excites you most about where the NHL is headed?
I think the talent level and the speed of the game is unmatched right now. And I think these young players coming in, and I think the thing I'm most excited about is being able to see the personalities of these players, because that's the one thing it is very easy to cheer for a team based on, your family was an Islanders fan. But when you know the people that are putting on those sweaters, and a kid like Matthew Schaefer and a guy like Anders Lee and the charity work that they're doing and their families, like when you know someone, it's so much easier to cheer for them. And I think that goes across the board around the league. And I really do think the NHL is trying to do its best from a business perspective and from a viewership perspective to try to bring the human element of the game to the forefront. It is a team sport, though, that is rooted in deep values of team and not separating yourself from the team. And so I think that that's still a struggle sometimes, and guys don't want to talk about themselves. But you can work around it if you ask one of their teammates to talk about them, and then you get their personality. But I think the personality and the young talent in the team right now is really, really exciting to watch. I think that It's so fun. I love 3-on-3 hockey. I know not everybody loves that. I think it's so fun to watch. I just think it showcases the game in a completely different light.
Yeah, it's just not a to me. It's not a way to decide an Olympic gold medal. I think it should be
Oh,
5 on
yeah.
5, 5 on 5 for 10 minutes, then 4 on 4 for 10 minutes, and then 3 on 3 till somebody wins. But you know,
I
that's
can
just me.
understand. I can understand that argument. I can understand that argument.
Yeah.
How is it going in
Neighbors always
Canada, by the way, you guys? Are people in mourning? What's the deal?
no, not at all.
Sorry.
Just to me, the Olympic experience was worth it. I mean, the level of hockey was
Oh,
so great. It was just off the charts, and I just enjoyed every game. Even watching Italy and France play,
yeah.
it just, it just was off the charts for me. I just loved every minute of it. And yeah, I would have preferred the Canada to win, but I'm proud of my American friends. Bo Horvat, who used to play for my Canucks. And so I'm happy for the Americans, and Vinny Trocheck is my favorite Ranger player. So I'm happy for them, and Connor Hellebuck, who played a hell of a game
He
and
did.
kind of
He
made up
did.
for his past playoff performances. He hasn't been great, so he's proved he can play under pressure. And so, if Winnipeg ever gets back into the playoffs, he might take them a long way.
It's interesting you mentioned about, watching the tournament in general, Jerry, because I was actually at like a tiki hut bar on break watching one of the games, and it was Canada Finland, and the guy next to me was like, I mean, I don't really, or no, was it Canada Finland? Yeah, it was Canada Finland, and he goes, I mean, like, how many guys from Finland do we really know? And I was like, almost all of them. Like, I was like 23 of them are NHL players. Like, when you think about it that way, it's wild. It's not just Canada and the US. You know what I mean? It's the Czech players, it's the Swedish players, it's the Finnish players. It's like so much of the league on display in that really big atmosphere that maybe the casual hockey fan sitting at a tiki bar in South Florida is going to say, that was really fun. Maybe I'll go to a Panthers game, or maybe I'll, tune in to watch this once or twice a week,
Yeah. Well, personally, I can't wait till 2030. I'm,
Me
I'm,
too. Me
I'm
too.
marking off. I'm
So
marking off the days.
I want to tell you that I did a study, personal study, that 99 and 44, 100% hockey fans have to have something to complain about. Of
Oh
course, you
yeah.
can always fall back on the refereeing, but getting back to what they did and how they do things in the league. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the shootout. Well, I say the shootout is a portion of hockey that you love. Breakaway. When I was a kid listening to Foster Hewitt, hearing them say it's a breakaway, wow. But what they've done, they've added this tidbit, which is the critics say it's but whatever they say it is. I
Skills
love,
competition.
yeah, I hate that. I hate that expression. So you got the the uh, the skill competition, or whatever we call it, the shootout. I think that's great. And I also think the fact that they take the other part of the game, which is the tie, and they reduce the number of plays. Now, why is that a great thing to me? I started watching hockey in 1939 when I was 7 years old. It's a totally different game. And what's happened now is that the guys are what we used to call in Brooklyn a bovan. They're big. These guys are huge. So what they do for a few minutes of the game, they get it back to the old skill when there was so much room on the ice, which there was if you look at the movie, so much room on the ice. So to me, it's a perfect blend. This is what you're giving the fans a lot of different things for their money. And if you don't like it, so play gin rummy. I don't care.
I do like gin rummy.
I like the shootout. I've always liked the shootout, but the only problem with it is that in some circumstance, it may end up that a team that was good in the shootout will make the playoffs, where a team that, deserved to be there but wasn't good in the shootout will not. So that's the only problem I really have with it. And but man, speaking as a goalie, I love shootouts. It was one-on-one, man-on-man. It doesn't get any better than that. That's that as a goalie, that's what you want.
Goalies cheat. Goalies do not they don't not these King Kong pads, for crying out loud. They're practically as wide as the rink. They don't need and they have like tomato, what do you call where you put the tomato, big gigantic gloves. What the hell do you need these gloves? You don't need, I mean, it's unreal. But despite my gripe about this, it's the best entertainment. It's the best entertainment, and as long as you don't have specialized goons who step on the ice for 2, 3, 4, or 5 minutes, like that guy in the Rangers with the funny name Rempy.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, but it's never been better. It's never been better, and the kids. I remember back when people couldn't spell Tampa Bay, and we went down there for a game, and before the morning of the practice, after the practice was over, they put kids on the ice. I said, how come these kids are good, so great? They're great. And now the kids are even better. And of course, I got my darling granddaughter Guli. I mean, she's just fantastic. Well, of course, she's my granddaughter. She has to be fantastic. But the way the kids have improved their end of the game, it's something, really something.
Oh, I got one last question for you, Shannon.
Okay.
What is your favorite NHL city to visit, and why is it Vancouver?
Okay, I love this question. I do love Vancouver. I have a couple of different answers. And my favorite could be different than other people's. And as also what I recommend. So I'm gonna list off a couple. Montreal has to be there at the top. I think there's just something really special about the city, about the Bell Center, about watching a game there. It just feels like you're in a different world, and it feels like a different experience. And I think it's something that every hockey fan, if you have the opportunity to go, I would say go to Montreal. As far as cities, I do enjoy Vancouver. I look forward. I circle it on my calendar every year. I love Vancouver. I love being able to like run around the park, go to Stanley Park. I had friends that actually met me in Vancouver this year because they wanted to come. They wanted to come for a game. And it's a great experience watching a game there. But my short list of cities where I tell fans,
Toronto.
Nashville, love. I think Nashville is an unbelievable place to see a game. I think they do a great job I think it's a good fan experience, and it's right there. Like you can just go right from the game right to the bars. Let's just be honest. It's awesome. Like it is. I love country music. It's fun. And I think they're welcoming to fans from other teams. So I would say I love Nashville. I think Vegas puts on a great show. I'm not really a Vegas person, but really since they've been in the league, I always look forward to going to see a game there at T-Mobile. I'm giving you a long list. You had just mentioned, Stan, Tampa Bay. I recommend that for fans too. I think it's a great in-game presentation. I think the product they put on the ice is good. I think they're a good team. Being able to like be outside in the winter and like go to a restaurant or go to a bar or like do like their pregame like tailgate type of stuff. They do a lot of fan activation things there that I think are really cool. So so my short list for fans, if you're going to tick them off your list: Montreal, Nashville, Vegas, Tampa Bay. Honorable mention, Vancouver. Sorry.
Toronto didn't make the cut again.
You know what? You know what it is about Toronto? I'm going to be honest about Toronto. Toronto, to me, The one thing I will say is you do not need to buy an expense. I mean, all the tickets are expensive in Toronto, right? It's expensive.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But if you're a fan going to a game in Toronto, you could be in the last row, and I still feel like you're a part of the game because we watch from up in the corner there, and I actually think it's a great view of the ice. And I think Leafs fans are so passionate, so I get it and I get the history. It's just not on my top 5. Sorry.
Well, if I was picking,
What would your pick be, Stan?
no, I would pick Maple Leaf Gardens because I grew up a Leaf fan from 42 to 52, and I loved it. And then the Forum. The Forum it's just everything you said about Montreal. Shannon, I love you.
Wait. I want to know what everybody else's pick is. Really, before you hang, Jerry, what would your pick be?
For the best NHL city
Yeah,
to visit. Haven't been to too many, to tell the truth.
you gotta
But Vegas.
go.
I would go to Vegas and Anaheim.
Okay, Elena.
Scotiabank is my favorite for obvious reasons.
Yes.
I really like Anaheim, and I like the Kings Crypto Arena. That was actually fun.
Okay. All right. Well, you picked some good ones. The fans have plenty to choose from.
Absolutely. It's a tradition of ours that Stan tells a joke at the end of the show. Stan, do you have one for us?
I'm shocked we didn't
No.
start with it.
No, I'm not going to tell a joke because it's so great to have my friend Shannon here. And I'm a musicologist, as you know. So the song that I have for you, which is a real song, is You Are Too Beautiful, and I Am a Fool, and I Am a Fool for Beauty. Love you.
Love you. But I do think we should stick to the tradition, Stan. And I'm wondering if you can tell the joke about the penguins and the zoo.
Okay, so this is my favorite New York joke. Guys, walking down Fifth Avenue arm in arm with 2 live penguins in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral. Cop sees him, he goes over to the guy, he says, you can't do that. Guy says, what do you mean I can't do it? He says, you can't be walking here with 2 live penguins in front of St. Patrick's. I can give you a ticket now. Get those 2 penguins right now and put them in a cab and take them to the Bronx Zoo where they belong. So the guy hails a cab, jumps in with the 2 penguins, takes them to the Bronx Zoo. Next morning, cops on the beat in front of St. Patrick's Cathedral, sees a car pull up to the red light at 50 and 50. Sees the same guy as yesterday. Now he's driving the car, and the same 2 penguins are in the back seat. Only now the penguins are wearing sunglasses. The cop goes over to the guy, he says, what the hell's the matter with you? I thought I told you to take those penguins to the Bronx Zoo. He says, I did, and they loved it. Now we're going to Coney Island.
I love you.
Do.
You guys, thank you so much for having me. This was a whole lot of fun. Stan, love you.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you for joining us. This was a pleasure. And to everyone watching and listening, we'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time. Jerry, I'll see you in Vancouver, and Elena, I'll see you in Toronto.
Yeah.